I've only like 2 days I've ever smelled any skunk.
My neighbors came home the other night and there was one laying underneath their pickup right back by the garage. The lights hit it and they went, oh no.
So you're saying there were more skunks on the east side of the
No,
west?
West side.
Oh.
Yeah, there's a lot more. I don't know about wildland, but it's all a lot more.
Yeah, a lot more open land.
Should I just talk to?
I always envisioned
I'm
skunks
right
not
up
during
against the
forest.
open tree-lined trail.
I had a family of skunks that lived under my house.
Used to trap 'em?
Well, they lived under the porch.
Everything else.
Well, it was at the
blocked
VA,
Okay.
with a little wrench.
because I was living there. And I had a dog that every year it would get shot at least once.
I'll talk
You
to
know
Kathy.
what?
What?
So you take
My dad calls it the cow and goat
one quart
corner,
or 1 quart for
where
every
you
quart of
stop
honey?
signs in
No,
before you head out.
I'll talk to Kathy. She.
I've
Take it,
seen
soak,
them
and just a little
get
Dawn soap.
on the side of the road.
45 minutes, rinse it off.
Yeah.
Works magic.
I keep that in mind. I'd like to call to order the special meeting, March 19th special meeting of the Chino Valley Planning and Zoning Commission. Mr. Commissioner Switzer, would you lead us in the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Could we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Armstrong,
Here.
Commissioner Welker,
I'm here.
Commissioner McCafferty,
Here.
Commissioner Switzer,
Here.
Commissioner Metters,
Here.
Vice Chair Pasiak,
Here.
Chair Merritt,
Here.
all here.
Also, just for the record, we have our new alternate, Mr. Summerfield, sitting in the audience tonight. Thank you. Pardon? Uh-oh. Well, it makes a difference. From now on, you're gonna be commissioner.
First name, Doc? Okay, thanks.
Anyways, welcome to the audience and thank you for coming tonight. Okay, so we're on to item 4A, consideration to approve the February 5th, 2019 minutes. Has everybody had a chance to study them out? Any questions, that sort of business? I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to approve the minutes as posted.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Do we have any questions, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Commissioner Welker is abstaining.
Okay, and just for reference, Jamie was telling me that just because you weren't at a meeting doesn't mean you have to, but that's your option anyway.
Right.
You know, so.
They did the same thing to me. I wasn't at one, but I like to abstain because you're speaking truthfully that way. All right. Alex, do we have item 5 staff reports?
Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, Commissioners. Just a few new things that are coming up. Starting next Monday, the new Development Service Director is going to start. So by 2 weeks, when we have the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, you'll be able to meet them and we'll be able to introduce them.
Alex, could I interrupt you for a second?
Yes.
Just wanted to let the commission know that Alex is a new father of a boy. Wife and son are doing well. Want to say congratulations.
The wife is doing well. I don't know about that.
Yeah, buddy.
Other than that, this item that I'm gonna present as a study session item will come up as an action item on April the 2nd when we have the scheduled planning and zoning regular meeting. Apart from that, today I'm presenting this as one item as a presentation and intertwined, but there will be 2 separate action items when they come up on the regular meeting. And then I'll talk more about that during the presentation. Besides that, as you recall, last study session that we had during a regular meeting, we presented a study session item. Enterprise Lane. It was about 12 different parcels within an industrial park, or what we're trying to create as an industrial park. If you don't recall that, please read the staff report thoroughly. That's going to be 2 action items as well, where we're going to have to do a general plan map amendment before we do the actual zone change on that. All right.
Okay. You'll coach us through that this evening, I'm sure.
Through
The parcels that are being brought under the general plan change and that sort of stuff.
Well, that was an item that was already presented as a study session item,
Okay,
but
so
I
we need
will
to go back to that.
but I will coach you through during the action item presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Mm.
Okay, so we're at the public hearing portion of the meeting. I don't believe we have any public hearing items, and we don't have any public here, so we're gonna move past that item. We're gonna come to item 7A, consideration and possible action for the election of officers. I wanna do this as proper as we can. This is my first time running an election as the commission chair. And so the first item of business, I'll act as the chair until the new chair has been elected. The first item of business is to seek nominations for the office of chair, and I open that up at this point.
I'd like to make a motion, sir. I would like to nominate you, Charles Merritt, to continue to serve another term as the chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission for the next year.
Okay, thank you. That's one. Is there any other ones? Okay, so now, according to Robert's Rules of Order, we're gonna close that, and then I'm going to step out of this as the chair, and the vice chair is gonna carry the election for the chair forward, and then in both elections tonight, I am not going to vote, because I'm just here to facilitate for this. It's my reasoning that the commission should select their chair and the vice chair, and that the chair is gonna set out of this, and once the chair election is done, I will step back into position as the chair, and then we'll move forward with the election, nomination and election of the vice chair. Is everybody in agreement with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. So I'm gonna step out, and Vice Chair Pasiak, will you take over?
Okay. Are there any other nominations for the chair? Hearing none, the nominations are closed. All in favor of having Chairman Merrick continue for another year, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Okay, do you want to hand it back over to me?
I now hand the chairmanship over to Chairman Merrick.
Thank you. I appreciate the confidence all of you folks have put in me, and hopefully we'll not stumble too many times through this deal. So the next item is to consider the position of vice chair. When we vote for vice chair, this position, if there's several nominations, we will vote on the first nomination first. If that person is elected, then that will put a stop to the voting. It has to be a majority vote. If that person is not elected, then we move to the second person, and then we just go until we get somebody elected. That's based in Robert's Rules of Order. Okay, so I'm going to open up the portion of the meeting to nominate vice chair.
I nominate Armstrong for vice chair.
All right, do we have anybody else that would like to make any nominations? Okay, so hearing no nominations further, then I'm going to close that portion of the meeting. And we have Commissioner Tom Armstrong, that is the sole nominee for the position of vice chair. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
I'm gonna abstain.
Tom Armstrong, now Vice Chair Armstrong abstains.
Not fair to vote for myself.
I agree. Thank you, sir. So we have a chair and a vice chair now for a year. And that's going to close the election portion of the meeting. Thank you, folks, for your work. We're gonna go to item 8, discussion items, which is presentation and discussion regarding the proposed business park zoning district UDO, Unified Development Ordinance, text amendment, and the rezoning of 200 acres of town-owned property at Old Home Manor. Alex?
Chair, Vice Chair, Commission. So as I stated before, I'm going to present this as one item today, or as one presentation. Give me just a minute. Is there a mouse here? Or can you pull that up? I'll just do it as a presentation on top. No, next to it. To the right there. All right. So just to give you a brief history about Old Home Manor. Old Home Manor is a project that it's been initiated and then installed, and it's been initiated and installed throughout the process, throughout different staff coming in and out. But town manager and staff got together, and we decided to take another crack at it. So the way this is going to work, at the beginning we were thinking about just rezoning what's considered the Old Home Manor or the business park portion of Old Home Manor. Right now it's zoned public land, which there's not a lot you can do within that zoning district. And the plan was to rezone it to industrial. But once we started talking amongst ourselves, this is a conversation that was brought up during Cox's rezone and CUP, as the commission recalls, about limitations on what we can do with the actual zoning districts. We can't impede a property owner from allowing to have a specific use if it's used by right or allowed by right. And that's one of the conversations that we had with the Cox zone change. Then we couldn't put limitations based on the uses that are already allowed by right. So we believe that this would be some type of roadblock that would be with the business park, because there is some uses that we didn't want, that we foresaw that we didn't want in the business park that are allowed in the industrial zoning district. So putting our heads together, we decided that the best way to go about it is creating another zoning district, and this is what you have on hand today. This is something that was created through a steering committee. Members of that steering committee were stakeholders from residents, from business owners, local business owners, and this is what we were able to put together. So this is what you have here is a draft version of what we call, or what we want to call, the business park. So, or the business park zoning district. So this is basically has the same format or layout that the other zoning districts within the UDO. It's arranged in the same way as you see it. It's the business park, and then like every other zoning district within our UDO, it has a purpose. And then we go down to the uses that are allowed by right. The uses that are allowed with a conditional use permit. A little bit something different here that we wanted to do is we have a section for prohibited uses. A lot of times when zoning districts aren't clear as far as a use that's not listed within the permitted uses or the conditional uses of a specific zoning district, and then it's up to interpretation of the zoning administrator. Let's say that, for example, that I had a property that was zoned commercial light, and I wanted to do a racetrack. and we go down the listings of the permitted uses, and it's not listed there, and it's not listed in the uses within the conditional use permit. And then we check the other zoning districts that are similar in nature, and it's not listed there either, per se, the commercial heavy zoning district. Then what do? Then it's up to interpretation of the zoning administrator. So we wanted to add a section for prohibited uses to identify those uses that we knew that we didn't want. So when it came to the time that, so we didn't have to put it in the hands of the zoning administrator. And that's something that's a little bit different than the other zoning districts that you see within the other zoning districts in the UDO. And going further along, we have the property development standards. So something that I wanted to note here is that the zoning or the business park is not strictly designed for Old Home Manor. Once it's an available zoning district, other property owners will have that as an option. As you see here, it says that the minimum development area must be 20 acres. Let's say that I have a 10-acre site and I want to rezone my property to this, and my neighbor has another 10 acres. So we can combine those acres and together rezone our properties to this business park and so forth. And another portion of section that we added that's not within the other zoning district is obviously the performance standards. Since this is a town property or property owned by the town, we wanted to control what exactly went in there, and we wanted to regulate what went in there, and the way to do that was by having performance standards. And you'll see this is something that's new. A lot of other municipalities have performance standards, especially for uses that are heavier in nature. Examples are one of the examples is noise, performance standards with noise, with dust, odors, and smells, emissions, waste, fire, and explosive hazards. Things of that nature that come with these heavier uses. Now let's say that, for example, give me just a minute. Let's say number 7 within the permitted uses. Let's say I was a business owner and wanted to bring my business to Old Home Manor. And I wanted to do number 7, a small engine repair and similar shop where all work is done inside enclosed walls of a building. So it's a permitted use, it's allowed by right, and I have the right to establish my business there. But based on the performance standards, and if I'm not able to comply with these performance standards, let's say that I'm not able to comply with the odor matter, then I'm not going to be able to locate my business within this business park. So that's something really that we thought that was really essential within this business park of Old Home Manor. So,
Alex, can I ask you a question?
yes, sir.
Just look, using your example right there, the performance standards, the goal would be to assess those as the business opens and operates, right? Because it'd be hard to comply with that up front.
That's correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understand that. So, because you're saying they wouldn't be able to bring their business into that area, but let's say they brought it in and then a year down the road, and there's an issue that comes up, and they found not to comply with number 7 on this list.
Mm-hmm.
Either they get in compliance or they move out.
Exactly.
That's the intent, the goal.
Exactly.
Okay, just want to make sure I understood.
And Alex, on conditional use permit, number 15 is bottling operation. I think that's kind of contradictory with the prohibited use of number 13, any industry that uses excessive water usage without recharge. Both bottling and micro refineries breweries use a lot of water.
Mm-hmm.
So I think those are kind of contradictory of each other.
Just as a thought possibly, that if the microbrewery or whatever could prove that they're recycling water and and being efficient with it, maybe that would keep them in compliance. And then we also maybe need some direction on what is excessive use.
Okay.
What is the definition of excessive use?
Right.
That's so subjective.
Commissioner Matters, can you repeat what numbers those were? What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take note of this. And once we take it to council, we can discuss this again at P and Z. And once we take it to council, I'll
Okay.
bring these comments up and we'll see how they
We
see
can
fit.
also restate them at the meeting 2 weeks from now too. if
Right.
That's
Okay.
okay.
Yes. So you said that there was a,
Conditional use permit, number 15 bottling operation and 16 microbrewery. Is kind of with prohibited use, number 13, industry with excessive water usage.
and then another comment that was made is probably defining what excessive means.
Yeah, we need to, there needs to be some sort of a standard for what is excessive use, and maybe it's business by business, I don't know. And you have welding and machine shops, those can all produce some of the toxic odors that were prevented, but if they can be contained in the building and filtered, then they're in compliance.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're not gonna be able to nail this thing totally shut. There's gonna be lots of instances where people can be brought into compliance maybe.
Right, and just to keep in mind that what we're doing right now is, we want to put the right zoning on it, which is going to be the first step. We want to take that first step. But as we've mentioned, that we are going to go through a whole rewrite of the UDO, and this is going to probably be rewritten again, this
And
portion of it.
One of the things that I thought about in reading this is when we do the UDO over again, maybe we can use some of this criteria you guys have to limit things and have performance standards and things that you can't have and that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's an awesome idea.
Is there any other comments from the commission that caught your eye during the review of this draft version?
Anybody have any thoughts or comments?
Or any questions in general?
We're probably gonna wind up studying it out, and when we come back in a couple of weeks, and I would encourage any of the commission to call Alex if there's questions or thoughts, that just to give him an opportunity to prepare for some of that.
Where again is the bottling plant on conditional use permit?
It's item 15.
15, okay, I was marking 13.
Yeah, 15 and 16 were the two items.
Right, okay. So this right here is a portion of Old Home Manor. And it's 5 separate parcels, but together, combined, they're 200 acres. And this is what we're proposing the portion of it that we're proposing to rezone. We already have utilities extended to that area over there, water and sewer, and easier access through 4 North has already been established over there as well. The road for 4 North extends all the way to that area of Old Home Manor. So the framework is already being put to ground. So just to summarize, like I said, we had a steering committee and they looked this over, and through their comments, we were able to make a few revisions. Revised it about 3 times, and finally They looked at it one last time and they were pleased with it. We had the neighborhood meeting on March 25th. At said meeting, this was at the rec center, or the community center, sorry. And at that meeting, only one resident showed up, and he liked what he saw. He didn't have any issues with the draft version. So again, this is gonna come before the Plan and Zoning Commission on April 1st. The way it's gonna be presented, I'm gonna be presenting first the draft version, because it needs to be adopted before the zoning goes forward. And it'll be presented the same way at council. You can't rezone a property unless the zoning district has been adopted first.
And we gotta have something to adopt before we can adopt it.
And you also, I wanna go back to what you said earlier, we also need to do a revision to the general plan.
That's a separate item that will be coming
Right,
before you. This is an item that came before you during a regular meeting, but we put some time apart for a study session item before we present the action items. And there was Enterprise Lane. We can talk about it a little bit, just to refresh your memory, even though it's not on the agenda. But it's about 13 separate parcels, and this area is more in the heavier uses within the commercial heavy zoning district. Some of the uses are borderline industrial, and it's a application that's going to be initiated by staff and to rezone these properties. We had property owners sign some Prop 207 waivers. There were some property owners within that commercial subdivision that weren't in agreement with what we were trying to do, and they're not going to be a part of the application process. There's some other properties that are not abutting Enterprise Lane that wanted to be a part of it, so we had them sign waivers as well. And the general plan amendment is gonna consist of a bigger piece than just these properties that we're trying to rezone. So again, that's something that's gonna be presented as an action item. Is there any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so moving forward to item 9. That's the public calling in. Public comments.
Oh, and by the way, for this this item that wasn't in the agenda that we just spoke about, the Enterprise Lane Zone Change and General Plan Amendment, the neighborhood meeting is actually going to be tomorrow here at Town Hall.
Okay, thank you.
And I will give a report about how that went at next Plan and Zoning meeting.
What time is that meeting happening, Alex?
That will be at 6 o'clock here in the chambers.
Okay, thank you.
Alex, can members that weren't here for that study session get a copy of the packet that was put out then?
You can actually access that online. If you go to the home page, you can go to Planning and Zoning, and you'll be able to access all agenda, all the staff reports, and all the packets through there. If you have any difficulty, just give me a call and I'll guide you through the process.
Date on it roughly?
I want to say, I think it was in December, either December or January.
It must have been in December because I was not at the December meeting and I don't.
You're right, and January we didn't have a meeting because it was the first of the month.
Right.
So it had to be December.
Better study that out, huh? Thank you, Alex. Okay, item 9, public comments. Seeing how there is no public at the meeting, we're gonna pass that portion. Before we go into a motion for adjourn, I would just like to thank Vice Chair Pasiak for his service as the Vice Chair. He's been on the commission for about as long as I have, and just want to say appreciated him taking that position. And I want to welcome Vice Chair Welker, or Tom Armstrong. I get you guys mixed up all the time, I'm sorry.
Bill,
Tom-
you almost got elected there, buddy.
I want to welcome Tom Armstrong into the position of Vice Chair. So having said that, I'd like to move to item 10, which is a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
And I will second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
I'm assuming no opposed, so thank you, Commission, for serving. Thank you, sir, for showing up at the meeting.
That pay raise too.
Yeah, right. Yeah, just put me in another tax bracket.
Yeah.
Sure
Which-
it is.
Oh,
Where
what's the other hand?
that where that equestrian